Hey guys, Paul here from familywheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And it's a bit of a mundane administrative day for me here today. Roger and I are off grocery shopping. We're returning some stuff to the hardware store. Kind of boring stuff, but all of a sudden things have become a lot more exciting because I'm doing it behind the wheel of this, the 2016 BMW 328i Touring Edition. So touring is just a fancy word for a good old-fashioned station wagon, and I've talked to you before about how much I love wagons and how much I wish the North American and Japanese manufacturers would get on board with these station wagon variants as well for some of their sedans, because I think when it comes to, looks, they can look fantastic. I mean, look at this. It's the 3 Series sedan, same wheelbase, same everything, same interior, but all of a sudden you've got so much more room in the back, and I think that this actually looks better. Some great new changes for 2016 as well, including some improvements to the steering. That was one of the things that people were complaining about with the new BMW vehicles. Well, that's been improved upon, as well as the suspension. So a very sporty, fun to get around in car. I'm going to take this for a spin. Stick around. I always see the side of these back. You really do have to look to the European brands to find out what the competition is for the 3 Series wagon. We have the Audi A4 All-Road, we have the Volvo V60, and of course the Mercedes C-Series wagon as well, which has been off the market in Canada for the last little while, but is coming back, I'm told, for the summer of 2016. And of course, because we're talking about more high-end luxury European brands, you can expect to pay for it as well. The 3 Series wagon starts at about $48,000 and climbs up to this package that I'm in here today, which includes the M Sport package and the Enhanced Premium package. Both of those are going to bring the price tag up to about $56,000, but it sure is a well kitted out vehicle. There's really nothing I'm missing in this car at all. It's got all the bells and whistles at that price. Now, one of the other major options that you have with the 3 Series wagon is the engine choice. You've got 2 options. First up is the 328i that I'm in here today, and that's got a turbocharged 2-liter engine on board. Very peppy, really fun. And the more efficient, but still quite fun to get around in, 328D, the diesel equivalent of this vehicle. Going to cost you a little bit extra, but there's a lot of savings at the pump. Expect about 5.5 to 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers as your average fuel consumption in the diesel variant. Here in this gasoline version, even though I am driving it around, fairly aggressively this past week to get a real feel for the sport package in this car, I'm still averaging about 9.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which for a car of this size, a station wagon, I'm still really happy with. One thing that I really like about this car is the fact that it is turbocharged, but even still, you don't get that really slow turbo lag off the top. It takes off the line right away. It's very immediate. And the 8-speed automatic gearbox is very keen as well. The shifts are fast and crisp and very fun, and I've got a set of paddle shifters here on the steering wheel that I've been playing around with this past week as well. And you can drop down a gear or two when heading into a corner, and it reacts very quickly for you and very precisely. So really nice engineering there on that front. By the way, you can get the sedan as both a rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle, but it's only available in the wagon as an all-wheel drive car. For Canadian winters, driving your family around, I actually quite like that. So in terms of fun factor and sportiness, I mean, you compare this to the equivalent BMW SUV, which would be the X3. It's going to cost you about the same amount. This is so much more fun to get around in. But if you've been driving around in an SUV for the last little while and you hop into one of these, a couple of the things you might notice right off the hop is that the suspension isn't quite as soft and supple, but of course it's going to feel sportier as a result. And of course, hopping into this wagon, it's very low as well. I had a couple of friends jump into this car with me earlier this week. That's the first thing they noticed. They went to go get in and they kind of felt like they were clunking down into a low riding sports car. The ground clearance in this car still is excellent compared to, say, the E-Class wagon from Mercedes, which a friend of mine owns and drives. His biggest beef with that car is that it's very low, and so he's constantly scraping the bottom. Not the case here in the 3 Series. I've been driving up and over curbs onto our driveway all week and it hasn't been a problem at all. So I want to break down some of the packages that are available to you here on the 3 Series wagon, because there are some excellent options that you can get on board this thing. First up, the M Sport package, which is going to cost you about $1,900 and worth every penny in my opinion, because all of a sudden you're getting a much sportier ride. First up, you've got adaptive suspension on board, which is actually going to sense the road surface and your driving style. Every second it's going to adapt to what it is that's going on out there and how you're driving the vehicle. The next thing you're getting is adjustable steering. So I have this selection button right here down on the center console that allows me to go from Eco Pro mode to comfort mode to sport mode and then sport plus mode. And the suspension and the steering feel is all going to change depending on which mode I'm in. And that can really make this car really tight and fun and sporty to get around in. And then last but not least, you get the M braking system as well. Much more responsive brakes. There have been a couple of times where I was hopping into this from our Volvo station wagon. I went to go hit the brakes and I just stopped on a dime. Super responsive brakes here in this M Sport package. Another package that we have on board here today is the Enhanced Premium package, and it costs $5,400, so it's not cheap, but the long list of things that you get with that package is fairly impressive. But here are my 3 favorite things when it comes to this package. First up is the heads-up display. It projects an image onto the windshield, and it's not too obtrusive at all. It's really basic. It gives you nice, basic, simple information like your current speed, the next turn on your navigation system. It's telling you exactly what you want to know, so you're not constantly having to take your eye off the road. I really like that. I also love the 360-degree bird's eye view camera that's going to help you park. It's so easy to park this vehicle with that camera system, and also the sonar detectors in both the front and rear bumper mean that you can really know where your car is located, even in the tightest of parking spots. Lastly, the Harman Kardon sound system that's in this is fantastic. Well worth that extra bit of money if you're a real audiophile like myself. And of course, this amazing sound system is getting pumped through our infotainment system. And I have a couple of things that I don't love about it. First up is the fact that BMW uses this sort of mouse-like controller down here in the center console, which lets you scroll through the various menus. I so wish that BMW would just use a touch screen, and it's not particularly easy to scroll through all these various menus. But I will say that the mapping software on this infotainment system is second to none. It even includes up-to-date, to-the-minute traffic information. So some systems don't include that, and you wind up getting dragged right into the middle of a great big traffic jam. Not the case here with the BMW. It's going to drive you around those big clogs. One thing that drives me nuts about this mapping software though, and it might sound like a strange complaint, the voice that's giving you your turn-by-turn directions just is so annoying to me, and I don't know what it is about her, but it just makes me want to turn it off.
100 meters, turn sharp to the left onto 40 Avenue Northwest, then turn right.
And while we're on the topic of sound, one thing I did notice about this 3 Series wagon is that even though it is a fairly expensive luxury high-end vehicle, it's still fairly noisy in here at highway speed. I was expecting the cabin to just have a bit of a quieter ride. Okay, so let's take a walk around this whip and show you some of the things that I love, some of the things I'm not so crazy about. So you can see here I am in the back seat, and we are definitely in a small sport wagon right now, because as a full-size adult, I am maxed out here. My head is touching the headliner, and with a tall driver up front, I've adjusted my driver's seat for a tall guy like me. I am totally out of legroom here, so it is tight. If you've got shorter drivers or younger kids here in the back seat, preteens, not going to be as much of an issue, but for full-size adults or rear-facing child seats like the one we have in place here, you're going to find that it's pretty tight back here. Now, because this is a wagon, you're often going to find that you wind up having an arm full of groceries, maybe a kid in the other arm. And one of the nice things about getting the premium package is that when you walk up here, you can actually use the smart key, wave your foot under the rear bumper, and the rear tailgate should lift up. But I always find these are such a pain that I can never find that sweet spot that's required of me, and I wind up having to just use this button right here on the tailgate anyway, and that's just what I've done here. So I wish that they were just a little bit more sensitive and could be less finicky, because, you know, you're dancing around with all this stuff, the last thing you want to do is try and find that sweet spot. It's a bit tricky. Now we've got our standard amount of gear in the back area here. We've got our fold-up stroller, diaper bag, couple bags of groceries, a backpack, and a soccer ball. And you can see I'm going to put this back seat up. There's actually a fair bit of room back here, enough for the big family dog and a couple of extra things. Certainly not a huge wagon, but enough to give you a fairly utilitarian vehicle. One thing I also like is the fact that it has a built-in, speaking of dogs, dog barrier here that you can bring up or down. It's built right into the tonneau cover. And if you want to use the tonneau cover here and there, but not have it eat up all of this cargo capacity, there's also a spot here underneath this flap that allows you to hide it away, keep it out of the way, and not just take up a bunch of space in your garage. Now, here is our rear-facing child seat in place, and you can see what that's done for legroom here in the first row. It's going to be tight, about 10 inches of legroom according to my measuring tape here. And it's not bad. My headroom's still pretty good, but it is a bit tight up here. And this is a general comment even when I don't have a rear-facing child seat in place. I'm going to put the seat back just a little bit more than it would usually be with that car seat in place, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because even with the seat all the way back here, if I close this door, it's a tight area to be in. I feel really boxed in, kind of claustrophobic, and it's the same on the driver's side. I almost feel like I'm kind of stuck inside of a tight race car. I'm not entirely sure why BMW did that. So I've already talked about how much I love the seats in the 3 Series. They're firm, they're supportive, they're comfortable, they're sporty, they're not too soft, and they're also very customizable. And by that I mean, yes, you've got lumbar support, but you also have bolster support down here that's very adjustable. So when you press these buttons, you either inflate or deflate these bolsters on the sides of the front seats. So if you're a skinny guy like me and you want these seats to really hold you in place as you're whipping around tight corners in this little sport wagon, they'll do just that. And it really does mean that you can fine-tune the feel of these seats just to you. Another thing that's great for tall drivers and passengers are these extendable thigh rests. So if you're tall and you've got really long legs, you can extend this out, and it means that you're going to have just that much more support. But one issue I have with it is that these cracks here just fill up with dirt and goop and grime and dust, and can be a bit of a challenge to keep clean. That's one thing that I do have issue with these seats, but for the most part, man, look at them. They're so slick and comfortable. I just think this interior in general is so refined and smooth and sleek. I'm digging it. So by now you can probably tell that I am a huge proponent of the station wagon. I love them, but I totally get why the North American market has really sunk its teeth into the SUVs and crossovers of the world. If you've got 3 kids, or you carpool a lot, or your kids are really into gear-intensive sports like hockey or skiing, this car is going to get pretty tight on you pretty quickly. That back seat is pretty small. But if you're looking for that perfect balance between an amazingly fun, sporty ride and that extra little bit of utility, BMW has just nailed it here with this 3 Series, and they've just made it that much better for 2016. It's just so amazingly taut and fun to get around in. In fact, I don't really want to get out of this car, and that doesn't happen too often. I just want to just keep on driving it out into the mountains and gear down with these paddle shifters and play around and just have a blast. But the amazing thing is that I want to do all of that in a station wagon, and I love that juxtaposition that we're dealing with here, you know? But unless I want to be found guilty of Grand Theft Auto, I'm probably going to give it back. In which case, I'll be test driving the 2016 Hyundai Elantra for you next week on the show, which is a sedan, not available in a wagon, by the way. We'll see how that one stacks up. Until then, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You can find me online anytime, familywheels.ca. And I'm just going to keep on driving this thing. We'll see you in 7 days.